Ever since the G20 events, I've been asking myself why martial law drill in Canada, and I think it has a lot to do with what's going on in the Gulf and the repercussions from this and the extended consequences of this. As we know, the Correxit, which they've chosen to use to the exclusion of other remedies, is highly toxic. It's now been reported by a marine toxicologist, Susan Shaw, that Correxit, when it's mixed with oil, it can go right through your skin and it goes into your cells and ruptures red blood cells, and among other problems can cause internal bleeding. In addition, we know that the Correxit can phase transition, which is basically evaporate, and can come down as acid rain, and spots have been reported on the crops in Tennessee. This was a little while ago. And also there's been footage put up on YouTube, people showing that acid rain's coming down in Gulf areas and burning up the roses and the grass. Now, in addition to this, we have hurricane season approaching, and what may exacerbate this will be the fact that the temperature of the Gulf waters has been raised by the use of this Correxit. It's been raised at least 5 degrees, maybe 7 to 10 degrees, and what this does is it creates worse hurricanes, like super hurricanes, which are destructive in and of themselves, but also they'll be picking up all this oil and Correxit from the Gulf and dropping it inland. In addition to the fact that this stuff is just toxic, and they're also putting the Correxit directly into the riser and it's mixing with methane, so it's coming up as a gas that's mixed with Correxit. But on top of this, what this is doing is, as far as I'm concerned, it looks like it's going to have to lead to mass evacuations, not only because of the toxicity, it's also going to destroy the Florida and these areas are where they grow their crops in the US. A lot of their fresh produce comes from Florida, and already the USDA is reporting that they're low on grain. I have a few links that I'm going to put to articles I collected on my blog regarding food crop shortages right now. So if you're already low on grain, and on top of this they're turning the Gulf into a dead zone. It's already destroying the fishing and shrimping industry. So what I foresee is massive food shortages, and I think this has a lot to do with the martial law drill that we had up here, because we're not in the Gulf, but we will be affected by something that will lead to civil unrest, or they wouldn't be preparing for it. This is from Before It's News. 2,400 Canadian soldiers deployed to Gulf Coast. According to this, 2,400 Canadian soldiers and 1 combat engineer regiment based in Edmonton, Alberta are on 72-hour notice to deploy to the U.S. Gulf Coast. And one of the concerns they mention in this article is there is potential. See, the U.S. and Canada signed an agreement that opens our borders to each other's military. And one concern they mention here is there is potential for the agreement to militarize responses to emergency incidents, such as what's happening in the Gulf, maybe. This is also reported in the European Union Times. NATO orders Canadian troops to U.S. as superweapon prepared to end Gulf oil spill. So again, here they echo the fact that 2,400 Canadian troops are on the standby to deploy to the Gulf Coast of the U.S. They also mention that NATO has ordered all critical assets moved 100 miles inland from the Gulf oil spill region, and that BP is getting ready to use a nuclear device to end the spill. Although, will it really end it, or will it make it worse? That's what will remain to be seen. It says the giant oil company is now quietly preparing to test a small nuclear device in a frenzied rush against time to quell a cascading catastrophe. If successful, they will have the capability to detonate a controlled fusion-generated pulse. It says, while the world watches BP's attempt to contain the oil gusher at the former Deepwater Horizon site, company officials have given the green light on an astounding plan to use what is known as a nuclear EPFCG charge if all else fails. So there's been a lot of fear in the last few years. We've all been sort of on edge, like, is this the one? Is this what's going to lead to martial law and total breakdown of society? And is this the end, you know? And of course, a lot of things have come and gone. Swine flu turned out to be a hoax. This time, honestly, like, it looks really bad to me. I'd like to be optimistic and think that, you know, things are going to be okay, but already things are not okay. The Gulf region is poisoned in a way that I don't know if they could even ever return it to how it was before. Now they want to blow up a nuclear device in there. They're still spraying Correxit everywhere. By the way, I had Matt Smith and Gavin Garrison from Project Gulf Impact on the radio the other night, and they were telling me that they're spraying the Correxit from planes, and 90% of it doesn't even make it down to the water. It just gets carried by the wind and ends up, you know, in the air that people are breathing. The stuff is everywhere. The place is completely contaminated. Now, you remember those FEMA coffins that maybe they were for veterans in that field in Georgia? Well, tonight I'm having Shepard from the Intel Hub on, and he was the one who broke the story about the coffins. And they're the plastic coffin liners in the field in Georgia, but there are also these concrete coffins, like they're in the ground, and they can hold up to maybe 4 or 5 people as well. These same kind of thing like the coffin liners, but made out of concrete. And when we saw this, I don't know, it was a year ago or whenever it came out, we were thinking, this looks like something they may use if there's a nuclear incident. If they use a nuclear device in the Gulf, there will be fallout. How can we not think there'll be evacuations at this point? And food shortages. To me, this looks really bad. I think that the least one can do now would be, if you're in the Gulf, to get out of there. If you're anywhere else, to stock up on food and pray.